Thank you for joining us for today's informational session on the New Jersey State Future Work Accelerator. My name is Kai Feeder, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief of Staff here at the New Jersey State Office of Innovation. Throughout the presentation, feel free to drop questions in the chat. We'll be responding to them live, and of course, we'll have additional time at the end to take your questions as well. Before we get going, I want to take a moment to recognize my colleagues and partners that have joined us here today. From the Office of Innovation, who you'll be hearing from momentarily, Joe Delatorre, as well as our colleague Ed Paulino, and then of course our project partners at the RSA, Alexa Clay, who you'll also hear from today, as well as Shirin Maani. And I do not believe they're in absentia, but a quick shout out to our great partners over at the Workers Lab, who are our collaborators on this project. I also want to take a very brief moment to recognize all of the colleagues that we have in New Jersey State government. I saw a good number of them on the RSVP list, and we're glad that you're able to join us here today to hear more about these efforts. Today, we're going to be providing everyone with some brief background on the accelerator and then walk through the planned programming and logistics for the program for the accelerator. And of course, we'll leave ample time at the end for questions. Again, feel free to drop questions in the chat. Throughout, team members will be responding to them, and of course we'll have time at the end for that as well. And with that, let's dive in. So a little bit of background and context. On the accelerator, in 2019, Governor Murphy appointed the Future Work Task Force to really evaluate and prepare for the challenges and opportunities that technological advancement are going to bring, and ensure that our state's future economy is stronger, fair, and more inclusive for all. In the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, the task force really recognized the critical role that the state has to play in equipping residents for a rapidly changing economy, building back better, and creating opportunities for good work for all, especially in communities of color and the essential workers that have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. As a state, it's clear we need to respond to the broad transformations that promise both opportunity and significant challenges that our workforce faces, whether they be the emergence of new disruptive technologies, new business models, new ways of work, disruptions, of course, caused by the pandemic, and long-term trends such as globalization. As a state, we're committed to truly building a resilient workforce, and that requires vigilant protection of vulnerable workers, promoting access to quality jobs, eliminating racial and gender inequities in hiring, wages, benefits, and job quality. And that's really where the accelerator comes in this vision. At the beginning of May, Governor Murphy announced the launch of the Future Work Accelerator. It's a task force initiative to support innovations that advance New Jersey's workers' health and safety, improve access to benefits, strengthen training opportunities, and bolster workers' voices. The project is led by the New Jersey State Office of Innovation in partnership with RSA's Future of Work program and the Workers Lab. So what is the accelerator? It's a 14-month program launching this spring that combines an open innovation challenge on the front end. That's what's going on right now as we're asking people to apply to the accelerator. And then once we select a cohort, we're really going to be providing coaching designed to identify and support private and public sector innovators creating and scaling projects, methods, and tools to improve worker opportunity, worker rights and safety, and worker voice in New Jersey. Why are we doing this? We really are seeking to further the state's commitment to generating a stronger and fair economy here in New Jersey, and focusing on spotlighting, growing, and advancing innovations that advance worker voice, well-being, and power, and implementing those and localizing those innovations in New Jersey. So to that end, the project really does aim to improve the lives of workers and their families in New Jersey while promoting entrepreneurship and building a real community of innovators focused on good work. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Joe Delatorre, who's serving as the Office of Innovation's project lead on this initiative. Joe, take it away.
Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to meet you all. So I'm going to start off with who can apply. So we intentionally made this a very inclusive process. The idea here is that innovation can come from anyone, some of the great work, amazing think tanks here in New Jersey and beyond, but also from the frontline workers who are experiencing many of the challenges that we talk about when we're talking about the future of work. So it doesn't matter if you're part of the private, nonprofit, or public sector, you're all welcome to apply, and we're accepting, teams, individuals, as well as, the entire organization. we're also interested in individuals and teams that are part of bigger organizations, government departments as well. I think the one caveat that we do have for participants is that if you are located outside of New Jersey, your organization or you as an individual, you have to have a kind of focus plan to kind of localize your innovation here in the state. So we've identified 5 key areas that we're interested in seeking innovations from. These are kind of mapped to some of the challenges that we've identified that workers face in the state. I'll start off by saying that we are not prioritizing in terms of the selection any of these specific. These all, like I said, kind of address a unique area, and our hope is to kind of get a range of innovations through the different themes to be part of the cohort. Really quick, I'll just try to run through these and kind of explain a little bit of what they are. So lifelong learning and reskilling strategies. These are kind of addressing the need for new skills and kind of meeting people where they are on their journey. The idea of training at the beginning of your career and then not really having to worry after that is no longer the case. So people are needing ongoing training and any innovation in that space. So if that's a application or something that allows people to do training in their free time, using gamification or something like that, that would be a great fit for that kind of theme. Financial innovations that support economic security and resilience. Again, this can be applied to a lot of different innovations in that space. That could be something like portable benefits program that helps workers in the gig economy get access to benefits, things along those lines. New approaches to strengthening worker voice and power in the workplace. So these innovations are, this could be something, one bucket potentially, are innovations that help connect new sectors and groups of workers to organize labor, or these could also be innovations within the workplace. So maybe that's including worker representation on corporate boards, or piloting a new worker ownership model. That would all kind of fit within that category. Enhancing employer practices. This really goes to improving the quality of work, looking through the lens of COVID-19. This especially applied to workplace safety and innovations. There was a lot of work that needed to be done there to kind of improve and create new ideas to help protect frontline workers, and kind of building on that. We hope to get some more innovations in that space. And then platforms that help New Jerseyans navigate opportunities. This could be, something like a matchmaking platform where you've found a unique and new tool to kind of identify the skills that workers need and matching them to training exercises. This could also be, a program that helps promote diversity and inclusion and access to resources. So again, a wide range of potential innovations fit within that space. So here's just some examples, kind of mentioned a couple already, but as you read through these, just want to highlight that we're not just looking for innovations that are technology based. It can be based off of a program, whether you found a unique partnership that you can leverage to improve access for workers or something along those lines. This could also be policy based. So, if you're working within a government department and come up with a unique idea for a regulation or law or something along those lines that would help workers, or advance something like, create incentives for advancing, worker ownership models, that's welcome as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexa Clay, who is the U.S. Director of the RSA and our amazing partner in this. Alexa?
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. And I'm actually going to share, I think my colleague Sharon will be doing the next slide. So Sharon, if you want to join in.
Yeah, sure. I can take over from here. So I'm just going to take everyone through some of the nuts and bolts of the Accelerator. So this is just the structure and timeline. So this covers the full 14 months. that Kai mentioned, but the actual learning and journey itself will be a 9-month initiative, which will be kicking off in July. So right now we're in the application phase, the sort of the competition stage of it. And then we'll be going into the launch and induction, the learning journey, and then we'll have the closing summit and roadshow, and then we'll just be doing a reflection and evaluation at the end. So the main sort of working areas that fall in under that. So we're going to be doing network and audience building, and that's already kicking off. That's happening right now. We're doing outreach, we're connecting with people. Applicants that aren't successful will still be invited to be part of the work as we go forward, and there'll be ways in which they can get involved, and that will be happening throughout the life of the learning journey. Then during induction, we'll be matching participants to innovation coaches, and also then splitting the cohort, which will be between 15 and 20 initiatives. We'll be splitting them down into smaller groups just to help build those connections and the deeper learning and the ability to experiment during the learning journey. But then we'll actually be having the actual sort of focus sessions of the learning journey itself, which will include workshops, masterclasses, and peer-to-peer collaboration. And throughout this, we'll be harvesting all of these insights into a final output, which will be something the cohort and also the audience will be contributing to, which is the blueprint for good work. So whilst the program is running initially, due to what we've been experiencing, it will be virtual and online, but we are hoping, fingers crossed, that towards the end of the learning journey that we can have in-person events and connections. So the selection process itself, so applications close on the 14th of June, and then we'll be going into the selection process. This will include a round of external judging, and the judges are going to be a diverse group of nationally recognized experts and practitioners and worker representatives. And what they'll be doing is they'll be helping us take the applications down to a final list of between 15 and 20, along with some alternatives. At this point, we'll be having sort of phone conversations with people who are on that list, as a bit of a get to know you, a bit of a sort of sense checking about where they're at, and letting them know more about some of the timings, availability, making sure that you can commit to what is going to be the learning journey itself. And also give people the ability to signal if they do need any financial support. But once we have the confirmed list, we'll be doing an announcement, which will include a press release and also an email burst. And then we'll be putting the profiles of the participants up onto the website as well, and starting to do social media and all of the buzz that goes around that. So the selection criteria itself, as Joe mentioned, you don't necessarily need to be in New Jersey in order to apply for this. You can show in your application form that you have a focus plan to become part of the New Jersey ecosystem, and that is completely acceptable, and we look forward to seeing that. The second thing is around social impact. So we would like to see initiatives where they do have a focus on vulnerable workers. So those, for instance, who have chronically long-term unemployment, those that are justice involved individuals, you know, that category is wide, and there is an opportunity in the application form for you to reflect that. In regards to innovation, again, we mentioned we're not just looking for tech platforms, we're not just, you know, digital fixes everything. Whilst we encourage that, we also very much encourage people that have ideas around what trade unions look like in the future, or different ways of connecting with people, or organizational redesign. There's lots of different ways. And again, the application form allows you quite a breadth of innovation in order to connect and show that what you're doing does have a place within this process. Whenever it comes to resilience, we're very much looking, we do encourage quite a broad spectrum of people that just have an idea about something, right through to people who have piloted and are in the process of scaling. So even if it's something where you've got an idea, we would like you then just to think about what comes after that and to show that in your application. So if it's an idea, thinking about what resourcing looks like, what are the connections and channels that you're looking in order to build, in order to make it a reality. And again, the application form allows you to sort of show that process and that plan for what it would look like going forward. And whenever it comes to compatibility, that's really just about the fact that we are asking some time from you, and we just want to make sure that this process is as valuable to you as we can make it, and that you do have a chance to reflect on what you're looking for out of this, so that again, we can just make sure that we're the right fit for you and that you guys are the right fit for this process as well. So I think at this point, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Alexa.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sharon. And I think there was a question about the deadline for applications, which I'll let you address in the chat. But, for everyone's benefit, I think one of the most important things to highlight here is that for those who are selected as finalists, we will be doing intake conversations to really help assess learning needs and challenge areas. So that will inform some of the curriculum. I would say about 70% of the curriculum is going to be fixed, but we'll have kind of 30% wiggle room to really see where the energy is, see where people need support, and the common challenge areas that we'll prioritize. So these are some of the core building blocks or learning components of the program. A key component of this will be mentorship through innovation coaches. Every participant and/or team that's accepted into the program will be matched with one of our innovation coaches that will provide a bit of mentorship throughout the course of the program. This can be based on a really discrete challenge area, or can be overall support and kind of sherping through the process. We'll also be curating expert lectures and master classes. So we have an announcement coming up towards the end of the next week that will give a little peek in terms of who some of those experts are that we're bringing in to help be guest speakers and speak to different elements of the curriculum. But that will be folks that are both kind of regional to New Jersey, national folks, as well as a few global experts that we're bringing in. A huge component of this is also the network building piece. I think the value that a lot of folks saw in participating in the initial pilot that we ran in the UK was around broadening networks, whether that's networks in terms of access to funds and financing and private foundations, if it's access to kind of regulators and people in the enabling environment, if it's peer-to-peer networks. And so we'll be doing a bit of a network audit at the beginning just to understand where folks' needs are in terms of network building. And then a huge part of this is really the peer learning piece. I know everyone has, virtual Zoom fatigue right now. And so as much as possible, we'll be designing interactive, workshops while we are virtual, case clinics where people can put forward discrete challenges they're experiencing, where we invite in experts that have, wisdom around those challenge areas, and just make it really dynamic. And then we also are leveraging a core curriculum that we've been refining at the RSA, which I'll speak to in a little bit. Great. So this is the overview of what the learning journey will look like. I think the main points here, one, it's really choose your own adventure. There's not going to be, a ton of compulsory sessions. We want folks, we don't want this to be a waste of anyone's time. We want you to take part in modules that are going to be most relevant to you, that add value to what you're trying to achieve. And we'll also try and design a really healthy rhythm and cadence. So this can be easily bundled into your work week. We'll have off weeks where folks won't be as integrated into the program, but can meet more informally with their innovation coach. And then after you're selected, we'll be able to share a timetable and schedule of events, just so you have a sense of the dates and what that commitment will actually look and feel like. But we definitely want this to be as self-directed as possible, and for folks to get the most out of this. And so there'll be, certain sessions where we'll try and promote, attendance and create a sense of group solidarity, and other ones that are purely optional. I think one of the key things that we want to emphasize here, and this has come up in some of our conversations, but this is not a pure play, venture capital accelerator. We are not looking to just grow commercial enterprises through this. We're really focused on building a field. And so for us, this means combining the best of systems thinking and entrepreneurial action, and about operating with that hybrid mindset end approach. And so, Joe spoke to some of the different stakeholders that we're bringing in, but I think where the magic is for us is those connection points between the sort of grassroots activist, the person working in public policy, the person working on a fintech startup, and just the cultural diversity and the fact that we're bringing together people that often will sit in very different aspects of the system. So if you're interested in pure play growth, this is probably not the accelerator for you. Though we do, the traditional entrepreneurs will be, a key vertical in terms of folks that we're bringing in. These are some of the modules. So these are, I mentioned the RSA curriculum. There are 10 focus areas. And so based on the intake conversations, we'll get a sort of heat map in terms of where people's energy is to go a little bit deeper. We obviously always start with, theories of change, how change happens, a conversation about some of the future of work trends and practices that we're seeing emerge. The systems awareness piece, thinking through different kinds of scaling strategies. So not just scaling wide, but scaling deep, bringing together different perspectives on that. Strategic relationship building, I already mentioned, will be a key component of this. Messaging and storytelling. I know the last one we ran, the storytelling session, was one of the most powerful. Policy literacy for those who might not be coming from the public sector arena, to really provide an understanding of, how regulatory change happens, how you can partner better with legislators, and then a leadership development piece. And so for each of these modules, we'll be curating those with guest lecturers, as well as from the RSA's kind of in-house experts. So participation, everyone is kind of coming into this with different motivations. And so I wouldn't say there's any one main driver in terms of why folks would be called to participate in this. I think for some people, it's really about, visibility and a platform for their work. For others, it's around the mentorship opportunities we'll provide, some of the networking opportunities. It could be that you're at a sort of critical inflection point in your work. Maybe you're trying to consider making a strategic pivot, for example. It also could be that you just want to be part of a visionary field building movement for good work. And so I think in so many ways, part of what we're doing is doing the pathfinding work for the future of work in New Jersey. And that's an exciting thing to be part of. So as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the components that really makes this program, for us and where we see the most value for our participants is in this connection between grassroots and grasstop actors and the opportunities for collaboration and deeper relationship. And so what we hope that this program will spark is just some of those deeper connection points and leaving behind this legacy and relational tapestry for supporting economic security and worker power in New Jersey. And I'll hand it over to Shrin, who was really embedded in our UK program and can share a little bit more in terms of some of her observations and testimonials for participants.
Sure. So I had the great privilege of being involved in the accelerator that we ran in the UK back in 2019. And I think that was actually really representative of some of what we're hoping to definitely achieve with this accelerator, in that it had a real broad spectrum of participants whenever it came to what it is they were working on, who they were working for, what they were trying to do, geographically, all of that was represented in the cohort that we worked with in 2019. So some of the people we had, for instance, we had one organization that was reskilling justice-involved individuals for the work, working with refugees to help get them access to work in regards to just getting their paperwork, helping sort out their paperwork and helping match them with different workplaces. We had an organization that was a tech platform helping connect construction workers with developers who actually were being rated by other construction workers. So again, just creating that time. And the different initiatives were very much at different stages in the development of their idea, of their business plan. But what was amazing to see was how they discovered the connection between them. And actually what it is that they were trying to achieve, and the challenges that they were facing often had some very fundamental similarities with each other, and they collaborated with each other really well to help share some of their solutions about how they tackled these different sort of systemic challenges. And you could really see that they started to build a cohort that collaborated, and actually they really enjoyed coming together and creating those different experiments that allowed them to overcome some of those challenges. So these are some of the testimonials from the group. A lot of them are still involved with the Future of Work program that we have at the RSA. And hopefully, I would really love to have them involved in this accelerator as well. But yeah, I think that process was as much as a learning for us as it was for them. And we very much encourage the people that are part of this accelerator to share their hopes and their plans during the phone interview that we do, because they will, as much as possible, we love to make sure that this is designed very much to meet the needs and to respond to where each of the participants is at in their learning journey. So at this point, I think, Kai, am I right in saying we're going to open up for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we can start working off of the questions in the chat that I think haven't been answered yet, although I think we've gotten to most of them. I think one that I saw from Monique Baptiste, will workers be engaged in the selection process? Yeah, we're actually, as we're building the judging panel now, we're actually, we were just having conversations about this yesterday about we're absolutely planning on having the worker voice and the worker perspective involved on that judging panel. And the question about, do you plan on doing a briefing on the project for funders specifically? I'm not sure I quite get the intent of the question, but I mean, we'll be briefing and sharing out our learnings throughout the process, and it's a key part of the learning journey as well, and making all of this content open and available to a much broader community than just those that are participating in the accelerator at that given moment. And I'd welcome anyone else to from the team to add any other additional questions there. I think we got Celeste's question. Others, Alexa or Sharon, if you can feel free to jump in and grab questions as they're coming in as well.
Simple around the size of the cohort. So Sharon, we're looking for 15 to 20 participants / teams.
Got it.
And I see that Denise has her hand raised. So Denise, over to you.
Oh, you're on mute, Denise.
Okay, got it. Am I all good to go?
Yes.
Super cool presentation. I've been interested in the future of work, myself and my partner, for the last couple of years. And I've had a lot of really strong feelings that New Jersey has a very unique potential in this space to truly be a leader and a role model for lots of different reasons: proximity to New York, abundance of talents, energy happening in the suburbs. Really thrilled to see the way that you've constructed the programming, particularly around the fact that the combined nature of the event, because the future of work truly is all about co-creation. I'm really excited to see that you've really thought that through in the programming. I guess my one question relates a little bit to the question I asked in the chat function. Given that the future of work is such a nascent industry, it is evolving at a rapid pace, and it's definitely multidimensional and multifunctional. I'm just wondering how your team was influenced, or where your research was in developing a framework around the future of work. And that also sent it by extension, the concept, my idea about what are your measurable goals on the back of the accelerator that might help guide us to understand how we could impact the accelerator.
Denise, awesome question. I'll answer from the RSA side, and then I know Kai and Joe will probably have some to share from the research that was done by the Future of Work Task Force that informed a lot of our thinking. But we have the Future of Work Center at the RSA. I'll put the link into the chat. We've spent the last 5 to 7 years doing research around future of work trends. outlining principles for good work that we believe are essential to equip the modern workforce with. And so I think for us, it's been really important to get out of a sort of technocratic think tank way of talking about work and really speak more to the lived experience of what work represents and how we can support a transition to a new social contract around work and what that looks like. So I'll put some of the links that have informed our kind of philosophy and thinking. And then, we'll be bringing in experts too that have very different and unique perspectives around work and how that's changing, from, people that will talk about sort of pure play, automation and ethics, to folks that are coming more from union organizing and thinking about the evolution of that space. And so I don't think we'll just have kind of one pure play ideology, but it'll be really a mashup of some of the different actors that we're looking to engage. And then the question about impact is awesome. We've been having regular conversations as a team in terms of some of the goals that we have and measurable outcomes from the Accelerator. And I think what we can commit to is just making that public to folks. And so having that ready at some point, end of June or July, to just really share so folks get the direction of travel, and we can understand how it will best be evaluated.
And I'll jump in on the tail end in terms of the research question, Denise, because it's a great one, and obviously good to see you again, and glad you're interested in the initiative and the work. So the Future Work Task Force, when it was first launched and appointed and launched, the first several months were spent doing heavy research on a couple different fronts. One, we actually, the task force had commissioned several pieces of research early on that are currently up on the website. I've actually listed the task force resources page in the chat that you can check out. It's kind of like an annotated bibliography of bits, and it needs to get updated in the past several months. But so you'll see a number of resources that were consulted there, dozens and dozens of stakeholder interviews, as well as, of course, the input from the experts on the task force themselves, bringing their perspectives and thought processes and lived experiences as well. And then the other resource I want to highlight is something that we had stood up originally as a kind of a tool for the task force to think about a solution-oriented and potential solution identification exercise that we decided to make public and open source, called the Future Work Policy and Practice Catalog. This is something that I think was last updated several months ago, but basically catalogs a series of ideas, perspectives, and practices and policies that have either been put into practice or just generally proposed to think about potential solutions. I have to give the massive state disclaimer asterisk here that none of these ideas are necessarily endorsed by the state of New Jersey, but rather these are just things that people had proposed as various solutions to at least consider. And we've made that open source and available on I believe that's at fow.innovation.nj.gov, and the link is in there as well. So it's safe to say that hundreds, if not thousands, more than 1,000 hours of research has gone into this body of work as it relates to the collective impact and time spent by the task force and task force members.
Well, that's a very, very solid answer, and I'm really excited. That's terrific. And my final point here is that I almost fell off my seat when I saw on the slides the concept and the idea of projecting systems thinking, and the importance of that to truly create a systemic change, to create a sustainable response. That's what we think about all day long, is the system of us, the system of work, and how we come together. So we're super big on that. And if we could actually help any of the other people on the call that are interested in learning about that, we'd be more than happy to do so. I'm sure you also have resources, but just to point that out, we think that is a fundamental piece to the mindset, even going into a program like this. So serious kudos for that. We entirely support that.
Wonderful. Do we have a question, I think, around the amount of time per week, or amount of time that is necessary? Sharon or Alexa, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I think most people are thinking, how will this fit into my regular work week? And so as part of the intake conversations that we'll be doing, we're going to be asking people about their schedules. What we found that has worked best is having, 1 week that's an off week where you would just informally have a one-on-one with your innovation coach. And then during the on weeks, we're likely going to schedule a session, during lunchtime to just make best use of that, as well as after hours. So, kind of 5 to 7 p.m. windows. no more than 1 or 2 events per week. Again, creating optionality. So, if it works for your schedule, great. And then have some more residential sessions that will be on Saturdays. And the idea is all of this programming in the fall will be entirely virtual. We'll hope in kind of the first quarter of next year to think about moving to in person for some of the Saturday sessions. And so the idea there is that we'd want to have some range of New Jersey geographies and really cool venues represented. Still curating those, but it would be that we'll likely do one in South Jersey, one in Central Jersey, and one in North Jersey. And then total timing in terms of estimate number of time. Again, it depends on how many different opportunities you opt into with the program. I would say at minimum, devoting, 7 hours a month is really required. I think for some people, that could be scaled up to 20 if you're super eager to get involved in aspects of the program. So it's really, I think it just depends on that own, the self-directed nature of that choose your own adventure, and what you have the commitment to get involved in. But I would say at minimum, dedicating 7 hours a month would be the requirement.
Wonderful. And I see we've got a question from Lynette, as well as is it Jeannie? Jeannie Gray over there. So I've got 2 questions here. Is the mentor industry associated, and does the mentor know the market you are targeting?
So I guess 2 ways to think about this, Jean. For the innovation coaches, we will have 4 innovation coaches that will each be looking after 4 to 5 participants or teams. You'll get to sort of rank your choices in terms of innovation coaches. So we'll do the best matchmaking we can in terms of expertise. Those innovation coaches are not associated with a traditional industry. They bring unique skill sets in terms of the sort of 10 elements of the curriculum that we shared. And so based on the intake conversations in terms of what the biggest challenge areas for you are, that would be who you would be paired with from an innovation coach perspective. That said, through the case clinic methodology that we're using and some of the peer-to-peer support, that's where we can bring in additional experts that might have mentoring that is industry specific or really targeted against specific challenge areas. So there'll be another opportunity to engage mentors who can come in, at different points throughout the program.
And Lynette's question about whether small businesses like e-commerce for non-traditional and non-regulated industries like aromatherapy and holistic healing methods, would this fit into this work? I think generally, and others can feel free to jump in, I think part of it is what we're looking for is if there's a positive impact on one of the core tenets that we've talked about to date around worker health and safety, rights and benefits, worker voice, economic security, et cetera. We'd absolutely consider it. I think it's less about the actual entity itself and more about what the mission is and whatnot. Thinking through some of these things. Denise's question about, sorry, Alexa, did you have anything else you wanted to add on to that?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think if you're a small business and you really hit one of the sort of diversity buckets that we're looking at, that's fantastic. And so, for people that have traditionally been excluded from, economic participation, that's great.
Mm-hmm. And I think another key add-on to that is also that if it's a type of business, like another example here is it's a type of business, a small business that wanted to pivot its business model or start doing practices in a different way, that's also something we're totally open to as well. We have a question from Denise. Is this a new accelerator? I think we touched on this a little bit at the beginning of the presentation that I'm going to go out on a limb here, and Alexa, tell me if I'm wrong, that this is the first time this has been executed by a government entity in the United States, but is of course building on the model that was set up by the RSA when with their original UK program. And I believe the link's in the chat there for more on that. And we can repost that. It's at thersa.org/future-of-work. Moving right along here, Jean, are you measuring the progress of the proposed innovation along the way? If you're referring to the actual accelerator, definitely. If you're referring to the innovations that will be part of the accelerator, definitely. I think we're absolutely interested in, as Alexa mentioned, on the KPI side of things, as we make this stuff public. But the Office of Innovation as a whole, and I think we measure our work by our impact. And those that we're able to reach. So I think that, yes, the goal of this at the end of the day is to impact the lives positively of New Jersey workers and their families, and businesses in the state, and the overall economy. So these things will be looked at in developing metrics along the way. And others can feel free to jump in and add on to my response there. Do we have any other questions that weren't addressed so far? From Franklin, are you supplying information for tax credits? Generally speaking, I think we would absolutely be working with the potential accelerator participants to help them access state resources and help them navigate state programs and services along those lines, as well as those at the local level or federal level. I'll also say that business.nj.gov is a project and initiative of the Office of Innovation that you should definitely check out. You can get live chat experience through the Business Action Center there. And just as a general note, you can feel free to reach out to us, just team@innovation.nj.gov. For more of the kind of the hands-on, kind of almost a constituent business services side of things. We're happy to help on that front, even outside of the accelerator. So definitely happy to assist on that angle. Innovations in animal husbandry considered. I'm unclear on that one.
I just responded, Carolyn. I think the most important thing is if there's an equity workplace practice or worker power element, then any sector can be open to applying.
Wonderful. Well, if there are no other questions that we have, Joe can drop the contact email that folks can direct questions to in the chat. And we will be circulating this presentation as well as posting a recording of it online. Visit our website at accelerator.fow.nj.gov for additional information. And we'll be following up with all registrants as well with more information. Unless any one of the other team members have anything else to add.
I think the only thing I would add that we committed to in this session is really sharing a bit of a peek in terms of some of the experts we're going to be involving. So we'll have more information around that on the website next week, and then also sharing more in terms of our impact strategy and approach, which we'll have end of June.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time. I want to thank again all of my colleagues that joined on the webinar today and helped make this successful. And again, you know how to find us, accelerator.fow.nj.gov. You can also email fow.accelerator@innovation.nj.gov. We'll be sure to be in touch. And thanks again. Have a wonderful day, and we're happy to give folks back 15 minutes.